onto a video about tiny terrain. So I really like 6mm stuff, and I really like 6mm Warhammer, especially 40k. And I have a lot of it, mostly orcs. I got a little bargain from a local fella who was getting rid of his old Epic 40,000. Bought it and got all this extra terrain. Now I already have a lot of terrain, but I thought I'd do a little video, show you how I make this work, paint it up, make it look decent for the table. You need a couple of things. Firstly, you need the buildings. Now, these buildings are quite pricey these days on eBay and kind of hard to get. I would suggest if you type in epic buildings or epic 40k buildings, you'll find some people selling 3D printed, which looks fantastic, and it's about 20 quid for about 8 buildings I think you get, and it'll do just fine. And the technique I'll show you here works exactly the same on them, so it will. You don't really need very many paints. You just need a handful and a couple of tools. So tools you need is plastic card. So this stuff, it's really thin. I don't even think it's half a mil, and it's kind of flexible. But once you get it glued down, sand on it, and building on it, it becomes quite rigid and works fine. Secondly, you need paint. So the paints that I'm going to be using is this wonderful terracotta from B&Q. It was, I think, about 8 quid. It gives a really nice brick colour. Then for the sand, we're going to use Sandari dust and then dry brush that with Shanty Bone, and that's pretty much it. And for the buildings themselves, they'll have that nice brown terracotta, and then we've got a dark grey, Eshin grey, and then Dawnstone for a little bit of highlighting. But it's all done dry brush essentially, so that'll work on them. You can add in extra little details. I mean, if I get this, you'll see there's like a wee aquila above the building and such, and a wee flag. You can totally use gold paint or what and highlight them up. I probably won't because I'm lazy. So yeah, you just need those paints. You need some sort of sugary drink to keep yourself hydrated. You'll need sand. Now this sand is from Bacchus 6mm. It's really fine sand and really good for 6mm models. I think I bought 2 bags of it about 5 years ago, and look, there's tons of it. It lasts forever. So we'll be doing some gluing. So scented candles also very nice to keep the smell of glue away. So yeah, glue all these together, and even if you get the 6mm ones, I suppose you want to make sure the bottoms of them are completely flat. So just use a crafting knife or a wee bit of sandpaper and sand them down so they're nice and flat. And a good marker pen. I use this, and literally what I will do is that I'll draw around it, cut it out with a pair of scissors, tidy it up so it's square, glue it on, PVA, put the sand on, let it dry, and then spray paint it and dry brush it up, and it's really quick. I mean, the only other thing I might add would be some tiny little tufts for bushes here and there. The kind of theme or aesthetic I have for my epic is a world that was once imperial has fallen to the orcs, and the orcs gallivant around, and it's all kind of dilapidated and full of ruins, and the desert kind of arid look to the place because it's just went to crap because orcs don't care. Other than that, yeah, I'll fade away here and come back with finished stuff. And so here we have them all based up. Cut out squares of the plastic card and glued them on, and then PVA, a wee bit of water, and got the sand all on. I used 2 brushes, a cheap big artist brush I think from the works, and an old knackered little brush to get into corners and such. So yeah, at this stage we're going to have to leave them 24 hours to dry, I think, and then we can just spray paint them up and start into them. I would say if you ever do get this terrain, you'll probably get, or if you're trying to get into Epic, you'll get loads of these. And these are little walls. Used to come in the battle host boxes. You get a wee sprue of them each time. They're fantastic for doing internals. So, I mean, you can do these buildings with just in squares with nothing in them. But I like to cut those black little walls up and put them in, so there's like some definition of when there was rooms inside these buildings before they got burnt out by stompers or orcs in general. Anyhow, yeah, so we'll come back in 24 hours and get some paint on these bad boys. So 24 hours later, and we've got all our buildings spray painted and ready for dry brushing. Now, we had a little bit of drama. The terracotta, the nozzle, died halfway through. So luckily enough, I was able to get the sand down, but the buildings themselves, just as I was about to start side spraying and filling in the walls, the nozzle died. So I had to come up with a different plan and went to good old faithful Rhinox hide and heavily watered down and just painted in all the walls. So I've got two brushes here for dry brushing, and we'll start into the dry brushing. Going to do the sand first, which is going to be these two, Zandari and Ashanti, and then we'll get into the walls, which are going to be these two, and we'll come back when that's done. So yeah, unfortunately my terracotta walls are now very dark brown, but Rhinox hide's a great base for everything. I love it. Okay, so all the groundwork is done, and the Zandari dust and the Shanty bone over that lovely reddish brown terracotta that I had has made this really nice arid kind of feel. And what I also did was in the footprint of the buildings, so if I take this one for example, so in the footprint of the building when I was doing the brown, I just dabbed little bits of brown onto the actual sand, and then did the Zandari and did the Ushanti bone and took it up to that kind of sandy look. You've got these lovely darker patches, which just gives it a better ruined feel. Maybe it's part of the original floor showing through, or just existing battle damage or whatever. But yeah, it gives a really nice effect, those four colours together. So now we're going to get onto the buildings themselves, and that's going to be Eshin Grey and the Dawnstone. So kind of like the sand, you don't want to go from a dark to a really bright grey. And same with the sand, going from that red to the really light creamy Shanty bone. So we'll go the Eshin Grey and give it a heavy dry brush of that, and then a lighter dry brush to catch the edges and some of the detail with the Dawnstone, and hopefully it'll look half decent. So 2 layers of grey. The Eshin Grey put on quite heavily, and then not so heavy dry brush of Dawnstone to make them pop a bit. And yeah, I think the effect's really nice. I mean, if you were doing this at 6mm or 10mm, and you had these type of buildings for example Stalingrad or something like that, World War II, I think that looks pretty good. Lastly, I'm just going to put a couple of tufts on. I've got wee red tufts and wee brown tufts, and really they're just to hide mistakes and just make it pop a bit. There's always wee areas where you might miss or something like that, and they're handy for hiding those mistakes. The very last thing to finish it off is to put these on. Now these came with the original buildings back in the day. These are the floor tiles, they're wee cardboard tiles. You pop them out and you can glue them in. You'll see that the buildings have a lip halfway up and they fit on there. If you're to buy some of these off eBay or something and you don't get those, you just use your plastic card. You cut out the plastic card to fit the space that you're wanting to put the floor in. You'd add a little bit of sand and then hit it up the way you would already. So, well, you'd obviously painted the building color. So in this scenario, I would probably hit it up with the brown and then the 2 layers of grey, and then glue them in, and that's how you get your second floor. So I'll get that done and show you them all together finished. So there we go. 10 buildings finished over the course of a weekend. About 3.5 hours of work in total. Obviously, I had to let them dry overnight, so it was about an hour and a half the first day, getting the baste, getting the sand and the gluing all done, and then 2 hours of just dry brushing essentially. So yeah, here they are. This is a couple of Terminators I've put in, fighting a Gargant in a ruined city, just to show you how it all looks together. I think it looks quite nice. Dead easy to do. As I said earlier, the 6mm buildings like this are on eBay. You can buy these exact ones, but they're usually quite pricey. But there are fellas on there do 3D printed ones, or I'm sure you can find the files as well to do them, and hopefully this helps paint them up. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed watching that. Out of date, how to build terrain that hasn't been actually manufactured in over 20 years. But hey, there you go. Thanks for watching.